Welcome back to another Freedom Friday episode. I am Gabe Erickson, the CEO of Warrior Transition Outdoors. Thanks again for being here. And the whole point of the podcast and these conversations is to create even just a little bit more freedom in your mindset and your perspective, that who knows where that's going to lead when you consider compounding growth and things over time. So that's why we're here. And today I have a super special guest. She's an amazing friend, and she is doing a ton to push WTO's mission forward in her own unique way. Alyssa Ford, how are you?
I'm great, Gabe. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation.
Yeah, no, the first time we met for a full conversation was over a podcast. So that's cool.
I know we've come so far since then. This feels like a full circle moment.
It does. I feel like I'm having whatever those like flashbacks are, or like a deja vu of
Deja
some
vu.
sort.
Yeah.
So for the audience's context here, we had you on our Revenant podcast when we did just a short stint of that, and then we might pick that up eventually. But so this being WTO's Freedom Friday podcast, a little bit different push here and different audience. But you came on to talk about your background in as a doctor of physical therapy, as a runner, as a marathon runner, as a human, and who's passionate about life. And just through our connection and everything, like, bring us up to speed on like, where is this relationship and why are you here? Because it's really an awesome story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's cool to think back on it because I feel like at this point it feels like we've known each other for a really long time, but it's really been less than a year. But we've spent a lot of time together and had a lot of conversations since that point. So the way that we first connected, like you said, was before the Revenant race kind of came to be last year. I was just scrolling through social media and I happened to see somebody else post about it, about the race. And I was like, oh, this looks interesting. So I clicked on it and was like, wow, this is such a amazing organization. What a cool cause. Like, I want to be involved. I want to be a part of this somehow. So and this was like the day before the race was going on that I found out about it. So I was like, sign me up, I'm in. So I signed up for the virtual Revenant race last year. I was in the midst of marathon training at the time, so I just dedicated my long run that I already had on the schedule kind of to the Revenant. And it was such a cool experience. I still remember that run so vividly, because I was having kind of like a really tough time with my training at the time. It was the middle of the summer. It was just so hot and humid out that training was just starting to feel like a grind. And then this run just like felt like one of those magical runs where everything just kind of clicked into place. And I think a big part of it was just like my mindset going into it. Like, it just changed something for me, being able to connect with doing this run kind of like for a bigger cause. So I had just like this mindset of gratitude going into this race, and it really like carried me through that run and made such a big difference. So that was kind of my introduction to the Revenant and to Warrior Transitions Outdoors. And then you invited me to be on the podcast shortly after that, which was really cool. And we just kind of like hit it off and had a great connection and found that we had a lot of things in common and shared a lot of kind of passion about similar things. So after that, we've just kind of like stayed in touch. And I remember after that conversation, when we were like chatting a little bit after the podcast episode, just being like, I love what you guys are doing. If there's anything that I can do to help, like, please let me know. I want to be involved. So then fast forward until recently, we stayed in touch, just on social media, kind of checking in here and there. And then you reached out to me and we're like, hey, I have an idea. So we had another conversation, and I was just kind of honored and floored to be invited to be a part of Warrior Transitions Outdoors in a bigger way, and kind of take on the role of race director for the second annual Revenant race. So I'm super, super excited for that.
We are so excited to have you, and we're really not the kind of people, we don't ask for much. And I think then when we do ask, people feel that it's probably for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah. So I
completely.
remember feeling like, we get that all the time because we run a nonprofit, like, hey, how can I help? How can I help? And really we want that to be in people's hearts. And,
Yeah.
as a result of like, it's gonna be that much more sustainable. But I just was sitting around and wanting this race to become what it could, the Revenant 2024 race, as a community building event, as a freedom building event, as a awareness building event, not only for Warrior Transition Outdoors, but for veterans and their families and our mission and what we're on. And I just remember hearing like, you need to ask her if she'll be your race director, which is no small task, especially remotely. So,
Right.
yeah. Tell me about the emotions and some of the things that came to you when I first posed that, and even over the next couple of days. How are you sitting with that news now? And you've been doing a great job so far. So,
Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's been so fun so far. And I'm seriously like, the overarching feeling is just excitement. And I really just like, and every time we talk about the race and like start, doing things for the planning process, it just like gets me more and more excited for it. So I think the overarching feeling is excitement and just like anticipation. Like, I think that we're going to create something that's like really amazing. So I'm like excited to see what that's going to be and how it's all going to turn out, especially with the work and everything we're doing behind the scenes right now to help make it happen. I think when you first invited me, I didn't know, it caught me off guard a little bit. I just had no idea what you were going to ask me, and I knew it was going to be something exciting, but I wasn't really expecting that. So I think I was a little bit surprised and just very like honored, like that's a big role and a big responsibility, and just to feel like you trust me enough to step into that role. I was just kind of floored by that, really like humbled and honored, and excited. And I think as I started like telling people about it, I remember like as soon as we got off that conversation, I called my husband and was like, guess what just happened? And he was like so excited too. So that excitement was almost, like it contagious. Like the more I started talking about it, I just like, and hearing other people get excited about it made me more and more excited about it.
that's awesome. And I trust you because of the person you are. I mean, you have such an amazing heart. The smile on your face could melt, like watch out global warming, because like you have such a warm presence. But
Thank
really too, backing all of who you are is like this life experience you've had as a professional, as a, like you mentioned, being a marathon runner. Tell people so they can get to know you a little bit more, like about your business, about your work, about your own personal drive as to why this aspect of life is so important to you, because it seems like it's led to a lot of freedom for you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for saying that. That's so sweet of you. Yeah, and running is a really huge part of my life. It's something that I've been doing for a really long time and that I've just absolutely loved. And the more that I've gotten involved with running and the running community, I've just fallen in love with it kind of more and more. And I really see the difference that it can make in people's lives. And you know, um, when you're talking about like freedom, like I feel like for me at least, and for maybe if other people that are listening that are runners can relate, like running is such a sense of freedom, of just kind of like being out there on your own in nature. It's just you and your 2 feet, and just kind of like connecting with the moment and being and doing what you're doing. Like there's no better feeling in the world. So I just love that so much. But the my background a little bit, so kind of just to answer your question. So as you mentioned, I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I'm also a running coach and a strength and conditioning specialist. And a couple years ago, I decided to launch my own business, which is called Resilient Running. And the thing that kind of spurred me to start that business is because I really felt like there was a need for runners. Like I just talked to so many runners that had kind of negative or frustrating experiences in the medical community, of either like going to a doctor and just being told, oh, you need to stop running, it's bad for you, it's bad for your knees, or oh, you just need to stop running for a few weeks and then you'll go back and you'll be fine. And they would try to go back and run and things would not be fine, the pain would still be there. Or even trying a course of formal physical therapy for a few weeks, and then same thing, still not having like a resolution, to their injury. And the kind of like common theme that I came across was just talking to these runners who were frustrated, who were overwhelmed by the amount of information out there, and that just felt kind of like lost, and like they didn't have a structure or a game plan for how to overcome whatever they were going through. And I was like, I know that I can create something that can help with that. So I did, and that's been my kind of my passion project. I've kind of poured my heart and soul into it. So it started as kind of like a little bit of a side business while I was still working in the clinic full time, and then has over time evolved to now this is something that I'm doing full time. So I work with runners exclusively. I eat, breathe, sleep running, and I just absolutely love it.
That's amazing. Tell what's your background with marathons and ultras and things like that? Give us a picture of like what you've been through.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started running when I was a kid. My mom was a marathoner, so I kind of grew up watching her, and she was just such an inspiration and somebody who I like completely looked up to, and just thought that it was just such an incredible, like, badass thing. And I saw the motivation and the dedication that she put into it, and I just was like, that is the coolest thing ever. So, and it was also something we kind of shared. We would run together occasionally, so it was just like a, I had that positive experience of sharing that time with my mom, going out on runs together. And then it kind of, it's funny because running really wasn't something that became like a central part of my life until a little bit later on. So it was always kind of there in the background. I played sports through high school and college, and running was just kind of like something that I would do once in a while as like an outlet, a stress relief, because I liked it. But I didn't really get seriously into like training and competing and racing until after college. So that was when I stepped away from playing sports more competitively. And I just was like, I miss feeling like an athlete and having something to train for. So that's when I decided to sign up for my first half marathon. And I was like, this is something that's completely out of my comfort zone. The longest I had run before then was probably like 3 miles. So like, from 3 miles to 13.1 miles, felt like a big jump. So I just kind of decided that's what I wanted to do, and put in the work to train for it, and then got hooked. So I started, I raced half marathons. That was kind of my distance of choice for a long time. I still love the half marathon, and I think that's my favorite distance to race. But I decided to run a marathon. My first marathon, my best friend and I trained for it together, which was also like just such a cool thing to share that experience with somebody. This was her second marathon, but she unfortunately she lost her dad to pancreatic cancer. So she wanted to do something like really big to kind of honor his memory, and asked me to be a part of it. So it was something that we decided to train for together. We She wore a shirt that said F cancer, and like that's kind of like what it was all about. So it was, again, kind of tying into like a much bigger cause than just what we were doing. But that was like such an amazing experience to be able to share that with somebody that I was so close with, and that I knew it was so meaningful to her what we were doing too. So that was my first marathon. And then after that, I was like, I guess I need to do another one. Like once you do one, then it's just like, okay, I see that I'm capable of this and that I can do it. So I ran the New York Marathon last year, which that was kind of like a bucket list race for me. I have a lot of family that lives in New York, so it was really cool to be able to see them and have my family and friends kind of like cheering me on in the crowds for that race. And I'm in the process of training for my third full marathon right now.
All right. Well, I only have a half marathon under my belt, and it was slow, but I finished. So
That's
that
amazing. Yeah.
well, and it was cool because that was the one, the mini Indy. It goes like through where they have the Indianapolis 500. Like that was
Oh,
part of
that's
the
so
course.
cool.
Yeah. But beyond like the races, they always get this clout of like, oh, they have that cool part of the race, or their t-shirts are always sick, or the medals are always really cool, right? But I think even what caused you to sign up, or what caused like the stories that came out of Revenant last year, just being a year one race, that's what's always most appealing to me. And it is so like interesting in my mind. Like the reason people show up and the work they put in, it to me that it's a silent gem that should actually, if you look through a spiritual lens or something else, it's more meaningful than everything else, like the course and the shirts and things like that. Do you agree?
Oh, completely. 1000%. I feel like there's always that kind of like deeper meaning and reason why someone is attracted to signing up for a particular race. And I think that really makes a difference during the race too. Like you can kind of feel that energy when you're out there on the course surrounded by these other runners. As far as like the motivation for the reason why they're there.
Yeah. Your story, even of signing up and doing it virtually for Revenant last year, tell us about do you have military connections in your family? If so, if not, like either way, you're such a supporter of this mission, and it's genuine. I could tell because I meet a lot of civilians who they just kind of throw up the flag that support our troops, and they kind of move on, but here you are digging into this thing. Like what is the passion behind this for you when it comes to, signing up to be part of it to begin with after learning about our mission and taking it further and trying to get people to do the virtual things and to show up? Like what is driving that for you?
Yeah, so as far as like military connections for me, my grandpa on my mom's side was in the Navy. He served in the Navy, and my husband's grandpa also served in the Navy. And one of my like fondest memories, they both have since passed away, but my fondest memories with both of them is just like hearing their stories from the time that they served and hearing just like the pride that they had for what they did and how they served their country. So that is just something that has always like really resonated with me and really sat with me. As far as why I'm so passionate about WTO and what you guys do and wanting to be such a big part of it, I think a big part of it is just I love the approach that you guys have taken, and it really kind of reminds me of like how I approached starting my business. You saw a need for a community and created a solution for them. So, um, you know, the instead of it being this kind of like institutional cookie cutter thing that you see with a lot of nonprofit organizations, unfortunately, that serve veterans and that community, you created something that was so individualized and customized and really had functioning from a place of okay, what do these veterans and their families need and what can we create to support that. So the individualization of it, and just the lifelong part of it too, of just like this isn't just a program that you go through for a few months. This is like a relationship that you're entering into that's a lifelong support system. So I really love that relationship focus and that individualization of what you guys do. And of course the nature part of it too. I love that. Just there's something so powerful about connecting with nature. So I love that that's something that you've tied into it also. And I think just I really, in talking to you and getting to know the organization more, it's not the passion that you have and the having that mission and at kind of like the heart and soul of everything that you do is so transparent, and I just love that. It's such a like genuine comes from such a genuine beautiful place, and I think that's where the power to do truly amazing things really comes from.
Wow, I'm humbled. Thank you for your words. That's incredibly kind and generous, and and it's I think it's just it's not about my brother and I. Even though we founded it, it's really become this mission that people like you and others feel in your own heart, right? And you're just showing up in your own unique way to support these, not just the veterans, but their spouses and their kids and their dogs and their cats and their goal, like whoever they consider family. Like that's what's important to us, and so. That's great. And how do you think, when you take that role as race director, like I'm really giving you the autonomy to make this what it could be. What how do you see that mission translating into a race? Because yes, there's a fundraising component to it, and we wanted to I think that to me, that's like a secondary goal is that it is a fundraiser, even though on paper it might look like a fundraiser. But how do you get the community and everything else you just talked about? How are you trying to channel that into the experience?
Yeah, and that's, it's a tough thing to describe, but
It is.
I do think that, just having that kind of at the center and what's kind of driving our planning process is that mission driven, that passion driven, that support for these veterans and their families, like just having that at the core, kind of like as the heart and soul of this race, I think is going to help make something amazing. But I think too, just like having it in such a beautiful location, like Montana is beautiful, and the course itself is like amazing. And so that's just like, again, kind of like ties into that, everything that WTO is about, as far as like connecting to nature and having these like powerful experiences with being out in nature. But I just think that, I don't know, I just love, it's really hard for me to describe it. I wish I had better words to be able to describe what I'm trying to say. But I think just like having that passion and that joy kind of like driving the mission and driving the planning of this race is going to be part of what helps create it to be such a great experience. And I think that type of energy just like attracts people that want to be part of that type of energy, and it kind of like is this contagious thing that can kind of just feed off of each other. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be really cool. I think also like we are both, because we're coming from that place of keeping the mission at the heart of planning this, that we're doing some kind of like cool touches. I don't want to spoil anything too much, but we're doing some kind of cool things to honor the veterans and make that as kind of like a central piece of what the race day is about too. So I think that that passion and everything will shine through in different ways on race day itself as well.
Yeah. And we had a very intimate crowd last year for the first year. Being year number one, just the fact that people showed up, period, was I remember saying, like, if one person shows up, then I'm fine with that. I've never done a race before. I've never started one. This is all new. It's, and that's kind of life's journey is trying new things, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I remember one of the stories that really impacted me last year was a veteran that ended up running the race, and he had said, like, when we first met with him, we didn't even mention the race. He came to us and said, "You guys, I'm isolating. Like, I don't want to be around veterans because all they talk about is all the veteran issues, and I don't want to
Mhm.
be around civilians because they really don't understand me at all. And so I just work and I go home. And as a result, I've gotten like really out of shape and I feel kind of just desolate and all this stuff." And we said, "Hey, man, we happen to have this race in like 2 months time, and I think you need to run it." And at that time, it was a 32 mile. It was last year was go as far as you can go, but we had a 32-mile course, and he finished that thing, and he was the last one to finish it. You could tell there was no lack of pride from the fact that he was the last one. That did not matter. Everyone was there cheering him on as he crossed the line, and it just meant so much to see that kind of thing. And I think I would much rather. I loved that your answer was what it was. Like, how do you put words to that? Those are the best things in life, right? Like, if you
Yeah.
had this, we're doing this kind of metal, it's really pretty. Like, that's not gonna satiate people's like, desires. So I would, people will show up because they like the shirt or they like the metal and how we do that kind of thing, which you could talk about as well. But really, I think people showing up because they have their own reason, and that we're
Yeah.
giving them the platform to say, "Hey, if you're a veteran and you're just trying to prove to yourself that you have a hope in the future here, cool. If you're a civilian, if you're a spot, like whatever the reason is, if you want to come out and run because your dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, you can do that at this race, even if it is a veteran nonprofit hosting it, because we're about much more than that. We're about the kids, we're about the spouses, right?" So I love that answer. Frankly, it leaves room for people to show up how they want to and how they plan to.
Definitely. And I love that story so much. Thank you for sharing that, because those are the type of things that I just like absolutely love hearing about, and that I feel like is such a big part of why we're doing what we're doing, right? And I think that that kind of goes across the board. Signing up for a race of this distance, or a race of any distance, like the people have their own reasons for wanting to do something hard, for signing up to do hard things. And this race is a challenging thing, whether you're biking 100 miles or running 50K or running a half marathon on this challenging, gravelly, hilly path, like there's different reasons that draw people to wanting to do that. And I love hearing about like the deeper meaning behind that, because I feel like there are some really cool backstories and really cool reasons that drive people to want to sign up for a race like this. I also love what you said, what you shared about that story about him being the last person to cross the line and still crossing with so much joy and pride, and still having people cheering him across. Like, that is something that I absolutely love about races, and that's something that like I gravitate towards when I'm choosing a race for myself. I think that honoring the final finishers and having the same excitement and joy for them crossing the finish line, no matter how long it takes, I think that is something that's just really beautiful. And that's something that we are carrying forward into this year's Revenant too, of just, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to cross the finish line, we will be there, and there will be people cheering you across that finish line. So, pace doesn't matter, speed doesn't matter. The fact that you showed up and wanted to do this for yourself is the thing that matters.
Yeah, I love that. What can you tell us about the race in terms of, what is it? What do we have going on? How can, what, as you mentioned, like there's half marathons, there's other things going on. So tell us about the Revenant in 2024 and what it all entails.
Yeah, so we've kind of like, things have kind of evolved from last year. I know you mentioned some of the feedback that was received after the race last year is that people like, even though it was so cool to have like the choose your own distance thing, people like having kind of the competitive side of things too, of more like divisions created or certain distances created. So this year we decided to create that, and we wanted to kind of cater to different levels. So we created the 50K ultra marathon. So for the ultra runners out there, I feel like that's a distance that's just a challenging a challenging undertaking. So that's an awesome kind of like badass distance to have available and for people to be able to race. But we did want to make it a little bit more accessible for, if someone who wants to be involved but isn't quite wanting to commit to running the full 50K, to have a little bit of a shorter distance option too. So we are having a half marathon course as well. So we'll have the half marathon, we have the 50K as our running options, and then we are keeping the 100-mile bike ride option. So that'll be its own separate course. So we have those three kind of in-person options available for anybody who can be there live. Again, the course is absolutely beautiful, mostly gravel roads. And it's just kind of like taking in the beauty of all that Montana has to offer, with the mountains and the fields and the rivers. Like it's absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. And then we also are offering a virtual option. So for anybody who wants to support the amazing cause, but isn't able to make it in person, there is a virtual option available. And for the virtual option, you can choose your own distance. So you don't have to run the full half marathon or 50K. That you can devote however many amount of miles that you want to for the race. So and a cool thing about the virtual option too is we are giving out t-shirts, which are in the process of being designed right now. We're giving out t-shirts and customized dog tags as kind of like the prizes at the finish line. And even if you choose to participate virtually, you still get a t-shirt and a customized dog tag as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and thanks for kind of breaking all that down. And all of that is on our website and Revenant Montana, and run sign up if you're, looking to actually pull the trigger on that kind of thing. But as a runner yourself, like what are some of the advantages, or I know like it's the beginning of the season and there's all these other things that people are preparing for, right? So it's kind of a good warm up. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of like, what are some of the reasons you could possibly come up with if someone's on the fence? Already they're probably like, I love the mission, but maybe I don't know if I want to do this, right? But
Yeah.
let's be real. Like if you're put yourself in that, half marathon and marathon running shoes as you are, why would you sign up?
Oh man, so many reasons. I think I'm a little bit biased because I absolutely love this race and what we're doing. But I think a big part of it is it's a destination race, right? Montana itself is beautiful. So what a great reason to just visit this beautiful state. It's super close to national parks, to other great hikes, to hot springs. Like there's so many amazing things to see and experience in Montana. So you can make a trip out of it and just see all the beauty that Montana has to offer. I love that it's supporting such an amazing cause, and I think a lot of runners will resonate with that as well too. Signing up for a race that supports a cause that they're passionate about, I think that's a huge part of it too. And I really think those are kind of like the two main things. You're supporting an amazing cause and you get to do it in an absolutely beautiful place. How do you beat that?
And if you're coming from out of town, you just ask us. We're going to give you the insider information where you should go. Because sure, there's national parks and things, but us locals will be able to tell you where else you could go to explore and experience the
Yeah,
state that isn't so like touristy and things too. So
you get the local inside scoop for your ultimate tour of Montana.
yeah. I love the virtual component too because we are a nationwide nonprofit. And I just think as this grows, I think more and more and more years to come, people will be coming from out of the state, no matter where they're from, to be a part of it. But that virtual component will always allow people, and that's a big thing WTO cares about is meeting people where they're at, right? And so we want that that virtual thing will never go away because we want to meet people where they're at. And if all you could do is show up and walk a mile, like, and that's all you could put in, you are part of our family and we
Yeah.
love you and we're grateful for that. So no, that's really cool. How I know you've mentioned a few things about running and all the things related to freedom, but as we kind of wrap up here, what would you say you want people to know? When you think about the kind of the heart of the whole podcast and why we're here, why we're even talking about this race.
Oh man. Let me think about that for a second. I think don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone, especially if it's for something that you're excited about or passionate about. Don't be afraid to push outside of that comfort zone. And just, I think we tend to kind of get in our own ways sometimes as far as just like overthinking things, and especially when it's something kind of like new or scary. I think sometimes it's just better to lead with action. So don't be afraid to take that first step, and you'll figure it out as you go. So push outside of your comfort zone, take action, and pursue the things that light your soul on fire. Like pursue that passion. And if you do that, if you pursue doing the things that you really love to do, I feel like you can't go wrong. So don't let fear hold you back from doing the things that you really want to do and that you really love doing.
That's powerful. I'm not even a runner, but I remember that one half marathon I did, the
Yeah.
13.1 was like the longest I'd ever gone. And, every step you take is literally vibrating the fear out of your body and into the ground because you only
Yeah,
have one choice, which is to keep going, right? So it's a pretty powerful message there.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Alyssa Ford, doctor of physical therapy with Resilient Running. Is that what
Resilient running. Yep.
Resilient Running, and also the Revenant 2024 race director. And for future years, if we can just kill this thing, I would love to keep you on, obviously. But thank you for all the work you're doing to build community. That's really the heart of this event is to build community, bring people together.
Yes.
And to share the message about what these veterans and their families are going through so that everyone can step up and if support them. So thank you so much, Alyssa. Appreciate having you on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Gabe. This was such a fun conversation, and I hope it gets people excited to sign up and run the race. But thank you again so much for having me on. Really looking forward to the future and continuing to put our planning into making this race as amazing as it can be.